It's the Full Court Press with Eric Frandsen and Jason Walker.
Welcome back to the to the show that we're doing right now.
Following the local teams, breaking down the biggest games with in-depth analysis and team interview. Join the show by calling into 435-752-1069 or text 435-339-0321. It's the Full Court Press.
Pros, Anson, yes! Caught! Touchdown! They did it!
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome on in to another edition of the Full Court Press. Eric Frandsen and Jason Walker here on the Full Court Press. And I'm here in Logan, and Jason is not. Jason is in Lexington, Kentucky, as Utah State prepares for their matchup against UCLA tomorrow in the NCAA tournament. And Jason was able to get there in time for Utah State's press conference earlier today, and we'll hear from, if we can try to play some of those clips here in the short time we have together. But if you want to hear all of it, we've already loaded it onto our podcast feed, and you can find that at 1069thefan.com or the 1069 The Fan mobile app. But Jason, welcome. How is Lexington, Kentucky today?
It's a beautiful place. One thing I've always loved about, I don't get to go to the eastern side of the U.S. too often, but very green, very beautiful. It's a different kind of beautiful, and it's always nice to see what this country has to offer.
Well, at least you got green. I mean, here it's still white after that storm yesterday. But you had a chance to get there in time to make it to the press conferences earlier today. And just a reminder for everybody, we'd love to get into this a lot more detail and share some of that audio and continue to do breakdowns. But once again, we have a shortened show today because of the NCAA tournament. The second night of first four games here on The Fan. But Jason, quick hitters from you, like things that stood out to you in Utah State's media availability earlier today.
Yeah, I think trying to think back, I have a terrible memory for these kind of things, but I know we were texting back and forth about some things to play. There were some interesting notes. We asked them about, experience in the tournament. That was something that I was kind of thinking of when talking to the guys. They had four players out there speaking to the media. Three of them have been in an NCAA tournament game, and that didn't include Carson Templin, Isaac Johnson, Jackson Smith. I know Jackson's probably not going to play very much unless things go particularly well or particularly bad for the Aggies. So they have a lot of experience, and more so than UCLA. I was trying to look through, see if any of their players had been to the tournament, and so I didn't think I'd run into too many of them. So the Aggies are going to have an advantage in experience. One thing that I thought was noteworthy, because we were talking about Utah State in the matchup zone and whether or not that could be like a surprise factor for the Aggies, and something that I hadn't noticed, but Jared Calhoun noted during the press conference, is the fact that UCLA's coach, Mick Cronin, he's run into this matchup zone concept before, so he's no stranger to it, having encountered it before. And so maybe it's not been at the forefront of his mind in his time at UCLA. It's something that, he's had in the back of his head, and so he can draw on that previous experience. So it may not be as much of a surprise as I think Aggie fans are maybe going to hope it could be against the Bruins.
Well, and here, let's hear from Coach himself. Coach Calhoun described that and explained that Coach Cronin has not only is familiar with it, but he has helped coach it in the past.
Well, if there's one coach that can prepare for it, it's Coach Cronin. He actually played it. This originated from Ralph Willard, which worked for Rick Pitino, which Mick worked for Rick Pitino. So there's a lot of things that Mick understands about it. There's things we can do throughout the game to adjust, to try to make it difficult on them. But he played this at Cincinnati. So I think on a one-day prep, it's very difficult. I think obviously UCLA has known for a while they're playing us. He knows the zone. What he decides to run against it, I don't know. Sometimes teams run their man stuff. Sometimes teams run their zone stuff. But there's also things, Scotty, we can do to adjust throughout the game. One thing we have to do, whether you're playing man or zone, is guard the ball. We've done a really, really poor job of that lately. It doesn't matter what defense you play. If you don't guard the ball, it's not very good. It's just like football. If you don't tackle, you're not very good. So the basics are really important to this defense. And I think it could be definitely a challenge for teams. We'll have to see how it plays out tomorrow.
Yeah, and so if one thing that I noted there in his conversation is that if you have just like one day, if you have you play one night, you have to do prep and turn around and play another team, maybe even with some travel involved, then it's easy to surprise somebody with that. But where UCLA has a coach who's been somewhat familiar with its concepts in the past, but also has like several days to prepare his team for it, it may not be that much of a catch you by surprise defense as it has been utilized for USU in the past.
Yeah, I think the thing that may still be positive is that the players don't know it, so they still have to be able to internalize what they're being taught in a quick, relatively quick, because they do have the few days they've had, obviously, since Sunday to prepare. It'll have been 3 full days in between finding out about Utah State and playing them. Almost more than 3 full days because of what time they had left on Sunday and the fact that it'll be like a 7 p.m. local tip-off here. So it could still catch them off guard, and it'll still be something they're not used to. It's just not going to completely catch them off guard. They're not going to have – it's not like they're going to have no institutional knowledge on how to go against it. So I think it's still going to be an advantage. It's just not going to be as much as I was initially thinking when we talked about it on the show last couple of days.
Again, Jason is live in Lexington, Kentucky with the Utah State Aggies as they prepare to take on UCLA tomorrow night in the opening round of the real opening round of the NCAA tournament tomorrow night in Rupp Arena. If you want to chime in, you want to weigh in, give us your thoughts. We will not be here at all tomorrow. It's going to be wall-to-wall NCAA coverage on the Fan both Thursday and Friday, so we will not have a show, but we'll be a place to listen to the Aggies and to hear the Westwood One coverage of that game. But if you want to chime in, give us your thoughts about the matchups tomorrow, 435-339-0321. That's the Young Power Sports of Logan text line. Had a few texts come in earlier before the show, 8968. Well, it looks like San Diego State got it wrapped and handed to them. I don't think they belonged in the tournament. Got it gift wrapped and handed to them. And then 6543, kind of a similar sentiment. Sad showing for the Mountain West from San Diego State. Anyone who watched them this year knew they were not nearly as good as in years past. I think teams that beat them this year got a false sense of hope because they were way overrated in the net and by the media. Should never have been a quad one team. Yeah, San Diego State has been slipping. They're not their normal selves this year. And look, I had a sense that North Carolina was going to come out with something to prove after all the negative press over the last several days about whether they should be in or not. But I had hopes that San Diego State would at least be a little bit more competitive than they were. But I don't know if that's a sign of things to come for the Mountain West, or that the conference just got its really bad game out of the way and the other teams can be maybe a little bit more competitive in their matchups.
Well, I know the highest hopes are for Colorado State. They're actually, at least when I checked, they were favored by some metrics. I think some of the betting sites had Colorado State as a slight favorite. Some of the computer projections had the Rams as a slight favorite. Some of them favored Memphis, so it's not like it was all going toward Colorado State. And heck, the lines may have moved since I checked them yesterday. But the stat that I saw that didn't look particularly great was that the Mountain West, I think, has lost 22 straight games when a Mountain West team is a double-digit seed, and they're like 1-24 all time. I think Wyoming was the one team that has won a game as a double-digit seed. And the Mountain West is already struggling just in general because I think it was like since 2016, the Mountain West is like 4-24 or something to that effect in the first round. 2 of those are from San Diego State. 1 is from the Aggies, and I didn't check who got. I think the other one was probably Nevada.
It's probably Nevada would be my hunch.
Yeah, so the Mountain West really struggles, and that's kind of the thing. The Mountain West is in a tricky position where they're a multi-bid league, but they're in this weird limbo where they're not a multi-bid league in the sense where the teams get good seeds. They're just a step above the other mid-majors that can only get 1, maybe 2, because you have your majority of 1-bid leagues, then you have like the A10 and West Coast Conference that are like kind of multi-bid leagues where you can see them get multiple teams. Sometimes they only get 1, sometimes they get 2, maybe even 3 if it's a fantastic year. Although that's more the West Coast Conference. I don't know if the A10's gotten 3 in a while. But like the Mountain West is more similar to those 1 or 2-bid leagues in that they can get multiple teams in, but they can't get them on higher seeds. And when when you have the lower seeds, when you're a double-digit seed, you're just going to lose more often because that's just the odds. You're playing really good teams. You're playing power conference teams that sometimes you're not ready for the athleticism that they can often have, even if they're not necessarily as skilled as some of these mid-major teams. They have more athleticism, and that can bother you. And then they end up losing, and then it just ends up becoming kind of this self-fulfilling cycle of, for the Mountain West teams, they're good enough to get in, but they can never get high seeds because the committee doesn't respect them. So they give them lower seedings because, they don't win in the tournament, so they don't deserve a higher seed.
Right.
And they lose because they get the worst cycle. Seeds. So yeah, it's like you if you're going to be that lower seed, that worst seed, you're going to lose more games. And then if you try and use that as the basis for whether or not you deserve a better seed, then you're just going off of terrible logic. And unfortunately, I think that's the case with the selection committee. So unfortunately, I think we might be in for a rough year at the Mountain West. They might go 0-4. Like I wouldn't be terribly surprised if the Mountain West goes 0-4 in this tournament, just solely based on the situation they're in. But they've also drawn some tough matchups.
Another couple of quick texts on the Young Power Sports of Logan text line. This is from 4446. Let's get into it. Did the interim president pull an offer to Calhoun for an extension weeks ago? Sabo said he now has an offer, but is it too late with West Virginia opening up? So there was a report on social media from Utah State play-by-play announcer Scott Gerard that suggested that he was doing a segment with Sabo as part of his pregame interview, and he said that Calhoun now, according to her, Calhoun now has a contract addendum that has been approved by Utah State administration in his possession. And then he added, according to those close to the situation, if signed, the addendum would make Calhoun the second highest paid coach in the Mountain West. So, yeah, I don't know, and I don't know to those questions that were asked. Is it too late? I don't know. Did the interim president pull an offer before? I don't know. But unfortunately, I don't know any more details than when we discussed this yesterday, other than the new information today that, according to Gerard, Diana Sabo has got that approved, and it is in Calhoun's hands.
Yeah, and the tricky thing with reporting, it comes from someone who is often given accurate information, but is occasionally made statements that just either weren't true or were not. I don't want to call them lies because I don't think the reputation of the individual isn't that he's a liar. I don't think that's who he is, but not all reports are going to be accurate. And I don't know if this report is accurate. I hadn't heard anything to that effect, but it's just coming from one individual. So it could very well be true, could very well be not. It's hard to go beyond that speculation. What's clear is that Utah State generally wants to extend Calhoun, but Calhoun has probably had this extension. Like if they really wanted to get the extension done either side, it would be done by now. Somewhere along the line,
according to Calhoun himself,
held up.
Yeah, these discussions started in December.
Yeah. and back when there was, the previous president. So this is something that could have been done a while ago. It wasn't, probably for good reasons. You don't extend a coach in December of their first year.
Yeah.
So a contract extension would have been held off. They probably would have held off until, maybe the end of the season. Heck, you look at Manny Martins, he had a contract extension back in this previous July, and they didn't announce it until after the end of the season, or I forget exactly when they announced it. They held off on announcing an extension for the better part of a year. And so with Calhoun, they could have just been holding off announcing the extension anyway. But now obviously things get a lot more hectic because suddenly there's a potential suitor for Jared Calhoun, something that wasn't part of the equation in January or February when they would have been doing some of these contract negotiations. And it's definitely a tricky situation for the Aggies. And unfortunately, there is now, I'm not going to speak to the percentage chance, but it is a realistic possibility that the Aggies lose yet another coach on a one and done. But the good news is that Calhoun doesn't have 1 foot out the door, or at least he's not like Danny Sprinkle or Ryan Odom, who had 1 foot out the door for the entire back half of the season. Jared Calhoun has been talking about next season and about recruiting and about guys he's bringing in. He's been talking about that for weeks now. He is, obviously focused on this season, but as all good head coaches do, he's got eyes toward next season as well, and is putting notable effort into having this team ready for next season, something we haven't necessarily seen from guys who, again, could kind of tell they had 1 foot out the door. Yeah,
that's true. Another quick text before we have to hit an early timeout. This is from 5338. As executive director of the 5338 Sports Reeducation Academy and Think Tank, what about all the predictive engine stuff? Anyway, I would like to personally thank the San Diego State men's basketball team for participating in this year's NCAA college basketball tournament. Yeah, rough night for the Aztecs. At one point down by 40. Just it was not their night. North Carolina was hitting their shots from 3. San Diego State. Look, it was a rough night for the Aztecs. And yeah, maybe it didn't look good for the Mountain West. But let's at least recognize this. In San Diego State's bad year, in their worst year they've had in a long time, they still made it to the NCAA tournament. That's more than most teams in the Mountain West Conference can ever claim or hope for. So, yeah, it wasn't great for the Aztecs, but hey, at least they got there. And they gave a young squad a good experience to build upon. And if those guys can come back, watch out for the Aztecs in the years to come.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there with watch out for the Aztecs in years to come, particularly next year. Or even 2 years down the road, if they keep this core together, which unfortunately in this day and age, that's an if. But they've got Reese Waters coming back. Reese didn't even play this year, and he was supposed to be their star player. So keep in mind, this is a down year for them, including missing their star player. Imagine if Mason went down at the beginning of the year. What would the Aggies be? So this is a very dangerous Aztecs team. So don't go clowning on them too much. Although do throw it back in the face of Mark Ziegler, who took a pot shot at the Aggies for losing to Purdue by 40 last year.
Yeah, that's right.
The number 1 seed in this, or second overall seed in the entire tournament, national runner-up, and the Aztecs just got run-ruled by an 11 seed in the play-in.
All right, got to take a time out here on the Full Court Press. Reminder, shortened show today because we've got more NCAA tournament games. First 4 games will be happening here on The Fan, but we want to hear more from the coaches and the players. They had media availability today. Jason's reactions from Lexington, Kentucky, next here on the Full Court Press.
Now here's a concept. You earmark 1/3 of your profits to go back into the community, to local charities. Dex Imaging does that. My name is Anthony Wagoner, and I'd like to share with you what I know about Dex, the company that acquired Valley Office Systems. Dex Imaging is committed to continuing quality customer service while raising the bar to become a strong community partner. Join us in creating the brightest image for tomorrow. Contact us at deximaging.com.
Advanced Fireplace and Stove is honored to be a 4-time gold medalist in the Best of Northern Utah for the fireplace install retrofit category. They work hard to take care of their clients, and they ask for your vote this year in the 2025 Best of Northern Utah competition. To find a quick link to vote for them, go to advancedfireplaceandstove.com. That's advancedfireplaceandstove.com. Thank you for your vote in the Best of Northern Utah. They really do appreciate it.
This is Catherine Buse with Cache Valley Bank, and we understand that concerns about fraud can weigh heavily on you. Your peace of mind is important to us. That's why we're committed to looking out for you and your family. Our team keeps a vigilant eye on your account. If you ever have concerns or need support, we're just a call or visit away. Whether you need advice or just someone to talk to, our friendly staff is ready to help. We're more than just a bank. We're your neighbors, and we care about your security. Visit your local branch today. Cache Valley Bank, member FDIC.
This is Ashley with LSS Insurance. Is it time to start thinking about retirement, Social Security, and Medicare? Are you getting ready to retire? We can help. Come the third Thursday, March 20th at 7 p.m. to our free seminar. Every third Thursday, we provide you with the best possible information to make an informed decision. We'll empower you with the information about Medicare and Social Security. Call 752-9493. Come see us at LSS Insurance the third Thursday, March 20th. 7 p.m.
Locker 42 is a store for Utah State fans. Many of the items you'll find there are custom, one-of-a-kind, produced by Locker 42. Such production allows for the best possible prices and custom orders that are unheard of at this level, and is one of the highest contributing licensees for royalty sales. Your purchase at Locker 42 is supporting scholarships and student athletes. Hoodies, t-shirts, hats, jackets, everything Aggie is at Locker 42. Locker 42, a store for Aggie fans by Aggie fans.
Need a reliable partner for your medical needs? Look no further than Triton Medical and Transportation. We offer top quality medical soft goods right here in your community. From incontinence supplies and oxygen needs to medical transportation. Whatever you need to stay comfortable and healthy, we've got you covered. Trust Triton Medical and Transportation, caring for our community with every step, every mile. Call us today at 435-557-6687 or visit us online at mytritonsupply.com. Triton Medical and Transportation, because your health matters.
They never could play it, but they sure can talk about it. Eric Frandsen and Jason Walker on the Full Court Press.
You know, I think the Mountain West is pretty physical, and I think especially our team, we do a little something different. You know, we play a matchup zone, whatever you want to call it, so I'm excited to see how teams handle that. You know, it's hard to play against a different defense. I think a lot of these teams are used to just seeing man-to-man all the time, so it'll be fun to throw a little bit of zone/man-to-man at them.
That was Mason Foslev earlier today when asking about when he was asked about Utah State in general, like what will the Aggies show? What will people see when they watch Utah State? So kind of giving a defense of this Mountain West team or Mountain West Conference, and also kind of their unique defensive style, as we've already been talking a little bit about. But Jason, other things that stood out to you today in the press conference from Coach Calhoun or the four players who were on the podium?
One thing I'll note is, because I asked Coach Calhoun about the health of the team, that was something that got brought up in the press conference after the selection show. Talking about Ian Martinez and Carson Templin kind of specifically, two guys, Ian noted back on Sunday that he was kind of banged up, had a few bumps and bruises. Didn't go into specifics as to what the injuries are, but Calhoun noted that Carson Templin had gotten a shot in his knee. It's Carson's, I believe, left knee that's been bothering him. If you remember those of you remember the Colorado State game, when Carson left the game for the last time, he got fouled. I don't know if he got injured on the foul, but he shot the first free throw, was in some pain. Then got so bad that the referee was asking, do you need to get subbed out, even though he was shooting free throws? Was it bad enough that he would had to do that? But he's like, no, I'm going to shoot this free throw, then I'm going to sub out. Of course, unfortunately, he missed the free throw through all the pain. Couldn't quite make the second one, and then had to foul on purpose so that he could get subbed out. And he hopped off the court, couldn't put weight on his leg. Calhoun said that Carson didn't practice yesterday. He was. They held an open practice today. Carson was playing, had his knee wrapped up. It wasn't a brace. It was wrapped up in like the tape. Seemed to be moving pretty well on it. So he's been getting some treatments, some pain treatments and whatnot to try and manage it. But it'll be interesting because the impression that I got is Carson will be healthy enough to play, but he's not going to be 100%. And Ian will probably only be slightly more healthy than Carson.
Yeah, my hunch is we're going to see a lot more Isaac Davis, which I think Coach kind of alluded to that anyway after the Colorado State loss. But I think he's kind of earned that opportunity, but out of necessity as well. One other thing that stood out to me in our closing minutes here, I just wanted to jump to this one part. There's a question about Coach Calhoun coming to Utah State and trying to continue the success of past coaches and keep the program competing at a very high level. And he dropped this line in here about NIL at USU.
We had an event the other night. We raised $1 million in one night. Last year, we didn't have that for this year's roster. We didn't have that for the entire roster, right? So I think that shows the commitment from our university, that shows you the commitment from Cache Valley. The awareness is very real.
Yeah, $1 million in one night. And the other day, I think he was referencing to an event that must have been held around the Mountain West Conference tournament in Las Vegas. But still, Utah State is finding ways to come up with the money for the contract extension and for the NIL for the players.
And if you want to be optimistic about, with all the rumors about Calhoun and maybe going to West Virginia, the one thing that make you excited is being able to pay Calhoun a much larger salary, make him potentially the second highest paid coach in the Mountain West, which would put him, looking at next year's salaries, it would put him somewhere in between Brian Dutcher, I think, is set to make $2.5 million. I think I had the number written down somewhere. And then Nico Medved, 2.7 for Brian Dutcher next year. Nico Medved at 1.75 million. So somewhere in between that, he'd be the second highest paid. And then the $1 million in NIL, like that'll buy you an elite mid-major roster. Like that alone, 1 year, that's an elite mid-major roster. You can go out there, get your, Calhoun's been talking about getting a high-level big man. It's not going to get you the best of the best, but it's going to get you a good one.
It's going to get you somebody.
Those are things to be excited about.
Yes. So excited to hear what they had to say today. If you want to hear the full audio, full media availability, it had Dexter Acano, Mason Foslev, Ian Martinez, Abin Gadarazzi, as well as Coach Jared Calhoun. Full media press conference is available for you to listen and download on our podcast feed on 1069thefan.com or the 1069 The Fan mobile app. That's going to do it for us tonight here on the Full Court Press short show, because we've got NCAA tournament basketball coming up here on The Fan. And then tomorrow, wall-to-wall coverage of the NCAA tournament courtesy of Westwood One. You can hear it all here on 1069 FM and 1390 AM.